Hi, it's Rob from the Brush and Boltgun. Today I'm going to be doing a video on how to paint Necron Cryptothralls. So the first colour we're going to use now is going to be the Citadel Contrast Black Templar. I'm going to use this to do all of the kind of frame, the skeleton of the Cryptothrall. As I said in previous ones, I use this rather than using the black paint because it goes on a lot easier. It also, once it settles and dries, it leaves the areas that you need to highlight quite obvious on the model because of the way the paint works. So once you've painted this on and it dries, you'll have all the areas that you'll be highlighting will already be kind of highlighted by the paint itself. So once you've finished painting all the skeleton with the Black Templar, we can move on to the next colour. The next one is going to be Citadel Runelord Brass. I'm going to do this to paint the most part of the armour plating on the Cryptothrall. So you've got the plates on his arms and his legs. I'm going to do the inside sort of round bit around that big kind of glowing ball in the middle of his torso. A little piece at the very front of the kind of frame around his neck. And also his legs and the plate around his groin and on his hips. Once you've finished with the Runelord Brass, we're going to go on to Citadel Canoptek Alloy. You can use this to paint his head and also the larger part of the armour on his back. I'm painting it to these colours because this is kind of what we've done with the Necron Warriors, where it'd be the shoulder blades that be painted with the Canoptek alloy and the head. So using these two huge plates on his back here as the shoulder blades. That done, we're going to use a little bit of Citadel Lead Belcher and we're going to do the two blades on his hands, or the blades for hands. So just give these a nice decent layer of the Lead Belcher. Now the miniature has already been undercoated with Lead Belcher with the spray, but as I said for the previous Necron videos, when I've sprayed it, I don't know whether it's been a bit damp or something like that outside, and it's kind of dried in a very matte and not very shiny way. So I'm redoing the Lead Belcher on this just so they have that nice shine to start with before we add the shades and the details to them. Now I'm going to use some Vallejo White. I'm going to use this to paint the tube on his neck, the eye on the front there, and also the big glowing ball which is inside his body. So the first shade we're going to use is Cryptek Armourshade. This is the gloss shade which was released with the Necrons and Indomitus. A little bit out of focus there. I'm going to use this lightly on the Canoptek alloy parts, and we're also going to use it a bit more heavily on the Runelord brass parts. I really like this. It dries with kind of a mottled effect. It's not a smooth even layer, and it does give a really great effect of the sort of like being weathered and a bit worn. So once you've got this shade on, we'll move on to the next one. We're going to use Citadel Nuln Oil. This is going to be to do the blades on his hands. Don't know why I'm calling them the blades on his hands. The blades would probably be more accurate. We're going to use this on the blades anyway. Now we're going to start reapplying the colour. So moving on to Runelord Brass, and we're going to be reapplying this to the areas that we applied it to earlier. You want to be thinking about where the light's going to hit it, and make sure that you reapply the Runelord Brass a little bit more heavily than you will do on the later layers like the highlights and things. So if it's catching the light, you want to give it a decent coat. If it's somewhere a little bit more shaded, just sort of like a little bit around the edges or around any cracks and battle damage to them, just to make those things stand out. Now I'm going to use Canoptek alloy here. I'm going to use this on his head and the whole of the armour plates on his back and his limbs too, because this is going to be the first highlight for the Runelord brass. So again, thinking about where it's going to catch the light, and you're going to add this to around 50% of the area that you applied the Runelord brass to. Going a bit out of focus and showing his enemies in the background there. So adding this to the Canoptek alloy parts earlier to reapply the base coat and just highlight on the Runelord brass. Now I'm going to mix some Vallejo Model Air Chrome with some Canoptek alloy. We're going to use this to do edge highlights and extreme highlights. So you want to make sure you're catching the undersides of each of the details, the cracks and the kind of bullet holes in his armour. And also any little ridges or anything like that, or any little details that you want to show. You want to be using this to almost underline them. So as well as getting those top edges, you're going to go for the underside edge of any details and cracks and things like that, just to make them really stand out. Now I'm going to use a little bit of Vallejo Black. This is just to touch up a few of the little areas where we've got a bit of the metallics or a bit of the white onto the Black Templar areas. The reason I'm using the black is because it covers those white areas and they won't stand out as much once you've painted this back on. Now I'm going to use some Vallejo German Grey just to highlight all those black areas. So again, thinking about where the light's coming down, so you're going to have the top surfaces highlighted with the German Grey, to a lot lesser extent the sides, maybe going about 50% down on any side armour and things like that. Also think about where the shade from armour plates and armour things above is going to be catching them. So if it's going to be quite heavily shaded, you can use the German Grey as a kind of edge highlight for that. So we're going to use some Citadel Mechanicus Standard Grey. We're going to use this to just do some extreme highlights on the areas that we've just put the German Grey. Again, it's the same areas as the German Grey, but just the edges of those areas to make them stand out. We're then done. We're going to go back to the lead belcher. I'm going to reapply some colour to those blades. Now again, you're going to think about where the light is going to be catching these. Leave the shade on the underside of the blades, and any edges which aren't going to be catching the light, just leave them shaded too. Now I'm going to use a little bit of Agrax Earthshade just to add some kind of an old look to them, a bit weathered and worn. He's been shut down for thousands or millions of years or what have you. He's going to be a little bit corroded and not looking as fresh and shiny as he maybe once did. Like so. Next up, we're going to use some Vallejo White. I'm just going to reapply this to the eye, the tube under his neck, and the glowing bit in his centre, just to make sure that you haven't got any little splodges of paint from the other colours on there. So if you have, just go over them and smooth it out. And once you've got the white reapplied so it's nice crisp white, you can move on to the next layer. Now I'm going to use a little bit of Vallejo Model Air Chrome. We're just going to put some little slashes and scrapes on the blade. Just going to put these on at a few different angles. Doesn't matter if some of them are thicker than others. as long as you've got those little scrapes, you can do some little edge highlights like you did on the armour plates of the Necron. You can also do those pistons on the back of his legs with the Modeler Chrome 2. I'm going to use a little tiny bit of Citadel BL Tan Green. I'm just going to do a few little bits on this tube with that, mainly the ends and the underside of that tube. And once we apply that and that's dried, we can move on to the Citadel Tesseract Glow and apply that to the eye. When you've done it to the eye, you want to do the little bits around the eye as well to give that the effect that it's glowing. You can do it with this big glowing ball on his inside here. Once you've got them done, you can also add some of the Tesseract Glow to the armour plates and the sort of skeletal frame inside there, just to give that the impression that it's glowing within. And also when you paint the tube with the Tesseract Glow, that will appear that it's got some darker and lighter areas in because you use that BL Tan Green just to darken certain parts of it up. Once that's finished, you've completed the Cryptothrall. So this is the finished miniature. It's another great one from the Indomitus box. Really like the look of it. And I love the colours of the new Dynasty too. Thanks for watching. I hope you've enjoyed the video, and if you have, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any future content. Also, think about subscribing to some of our other social media linked below. Thanks very much. Like the channel and you enjoy our content and you'd like to support us, you can head to our Ko-fi page below where you can buy us a brew. Thanks very much.